Hello and welcome to this episode of the Maverrik podcast. I am Luke 2. Today I'm joined by Josh Ramirez, the executive himself.
Oh, it's great to be on a podcast today.
Be on the old podcast. Last time we were here, we were doing the lives, but now we're doing a podcast which we're kind of boring more into actual topics. So as you probably saw in the title today, we're talking about how to improve your conversion rate on LinkedIn. So before we get into conversion rate, what do you think it takes to be successful on LinkedIn, Josh?
I think to be successful at anything, it's all about being consistent. So I think a lot of people, they have the strategies, they have all of this stuff, they know how to implement it to an extent, but without being consistent with what you're doing, I think everyone will struggle to be successful at anything.
Yeah, especially when it comes to marketing or sales, people find these tools or techniques to use. And then what they do is they try it out for a week and say, oh, I'll get some engagement, I'll really get it going. But then except they do drop off because they think to themselves, well, I did this now. And you can see it happening with posts all the time where, I posted this really good post and I just left it there and it carried on and it got some engagement, got some interest or like an intent threshold where someone shows that they're interested in that topic. But then what happens is they'll just say, that was it. I tried that and I got what I got from it. But they never think, what if you did it again?
Yeah.
What if you posted again?
Yeah, and I think it's with content. A lot of people will go, actually, I'm going to post 5 times this week. But actually, in 2 weeks' time, I've got nothing new to post.
Yeah.
But if you position your content correctly, you can actually go, well, I'll do this week, I'll tweak it slightly the next week, and then on the third week, I will start reusing the content I've already got that's worked. Because a lot of people will go, actually, I don't want to be posting the same thing every single week, which I can see why they wouldn't. But if you change a couple of words, you might actually have 500 more connections by then, and you're going to start to hit new people.
Yeah, as you grow your network, you grow your audience, a lot of people won't see what you've originally done. And some of the content that you put out there, you can just refine, make it better, make it more to a point and speak to the people a little bit better. You told, before we actually went live on this podcast, you were talking about a poll that you did. Do you want to go into that story again? Because I thought it was really interesting.
Yes, so when it comes to LinkedIn polls, I think a lot of people will vote on it. They'll say, I'm going to start posting on LinkedIn every single week.
Yeah.
But when it actually comes to it, it'll just slip off, like you said. They might do it for a week, they might get these high views, and then they'll just revert back to their old ways. So yeah, back in January, so the start of the year, I'd done a poll all about optimizing LinkedIn in 2022.
Yeah. And
out of that, I actually got 86% of people voted, yes, I'm going to optimize LinkedIn, and 14% of people said, no, I'm not going to. And I actually went back at the start of this week, saw the first 10 people who have voted, yes, I'm going to be optimizing LinkedIn. Out of the first 10 people I looked at, only 2 of them had posted in the past month.
Yeah, so you said, I'm looking to do it, but when it comes to actually going through with it, it was sort of dropped off, and we're not going to name any names here. But yeah, it's interesting because a lot of times people will want to attempt to do something. I mean, it's kind of like anything you do. Like, if you start going to the gym, you go for a week or two. If you drop off, you don't see your results. If you stick with it over time, you'll see your results.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we work with social selling. And now this is about conversion. So people are always like, I know how to get loads of leads. I know how to do this. I know how to do this. But the actual conversion part of it is made a lot simpler when you've done that work at the start.
Yeah. So with Maverrik, we try and get as many touch points as possible, because I know if I get you on a call straight away and you've heard nothing about Maverrik, I'm then giving you the full process, which I will anyway, but you're completely new to it. But let's say you've been on one of our webinars, I've been pre-selling you with my content, you might have been on one of Dean's live sessions. When we're doing all of these steps, it becomes much easier for me to talk you through the process, because you would understand how Maverrik works, and then I'm just almost refining what you're already doing. Yeah,
describe a difference in a sales call or discovery call. What's it, a sales call? Discovery call, because you're discovering about the person. Tell me the difference about a discovery call with someone who has seen our content a few times versus someone who has just immediately gone into a call.
So yeah, I mean, what we tend to do is I don't really have calls when they're completely cold like that, but especially with people who have been on our website, they might have seen one of our ads or they might have got something in the post and they're intrigued by it.
Yeah.
So with them, it's almost pointing out where they might be going wrong and then showing them the way to do it. But a lot of people struggle to put all the dots together. Yeah. But if someone's been on our webinar or they've seen our stuff before, then it's much smoother and they understand the process with that.
Yeah, the conversation's probably a little bit lighter as well. You don't have the initial, okay, who are you? What are you about? Is this a legit sort of thing? Whereas if they've talked to us a few times, they're like, I know you guys, I see you all the time, I see the value you put out there, I've seen the podcasts, I've seen your snippets, I've seen every little bit of Maverrik.
Yeah.
I want you up on a call with you and tell me the bits I'm missing.
Yeah. So like, especially if someone's maybe downloaded one of our lead pages or they've done something like that, we then have that point of conversation as well, because although you might be on a call and you might think your content is where you're lacking, once we get into the call, we might actually find it's your conversation bit that you're struggling with.
Yeah.
So with the call, having that initial touch point is good, but we might actually find out that it's your conversations, or it could be your content when you think it's your conversations.
Yeah, I've seen loads of like great filmmakers and designers have really cool, refined stuff. But because the post wasn't structured in the right way, because the message wasn't creating conversations and it wasn't building upon it, or because they were just too worried about posting a lot of stuff and just posting the really good bits, it didn't get as far as it could have. And it's all because
perfectionist.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And it's weird because some content I see on LinkedIn, I think, how the hell is that done that well? Because it could be done on like Paint, and someone has literally just slapped them together. And then you realize it's because the message is really well written. It's because it actually resonates with the person who we're talking to. They've actually built an audience of people who actually genuinely care about that message. Yeah. So it could look like absolute dog crap, but as long as it creates a conversation and people care about it, it will do really well on social.
Yeah, and I always say when I speak to people, there's a lot of different pains that your customers will be feeling. So it could be your content, it could be the conversation bit after having those initial interactions, it could be you're commenting on people's posts. So when you're positioning your content, you're trying to identify those different things for each person, because you might do 3 posts in a week towards content, but you might feel like your content is good. But as soon as I revert over to Sales Navigator, you might go, gosh, I am actually struggling with utilising it. So it's just, like you said, positioning your content to then educate your audience.
So if we've gone through the process of content into connecting, and now we've got a person on a message and a call, that's the bit where people, I feel, are interested in looking at the conversion. But as we mentioned before, it's all about already having that in the back of their heads, like, oh, this is how it can help me. Because when it comes to an actual service you provide, all you're doing and during those calls are unpicking what it is they need from us.
Yeah.
So in terms of that process then, do you feel like it's easier or harder when it comes to inbound versus, because we do a form of outreach, but it's mainly inbound, isn't it?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, it's almost like the cold and the touch point. So my goal on the call is to identify where you're struggling and then pointing you in the right direction when it comes to that. Because I had a call this morning actually, and I was speaking to this gentleman, and he said he's using not automation, but he's maybe sending 20 generic messages. Yeah. And he was going, oh, I'm actually might be getting 2 or 3 out of 100. But then I actually said to him, yes, when it comes to selling as a whole, 3% of people are ready to buy from you at one given time. Yeah. So let's say you send 100 messages, you're more than likely going to get 2 or 3 calls off that. But the problem with the other 97, 98% is you're potentially burning that relationship. Yeah. So although
and the poor intern who has to write all those messages to the person is struggling, like, I've been doing this for weeks.
Yeah, so although it looks good on the front end of it, actually, if you took a more strategic approach with it, then essentially what you're doing is you're priming those 3% already, because you'll know they're already there, but you might actually pick off another 9 to 12% of those people who just needed ticking over a little bit more.
Yeah, you're holding a hand through the entire process. Yes. And then because you're that person who's been there from start, from A to B, it's not a case of, oh, we're going to go back and we're going to review our options. It's, I either want that or I don't want that. And that's kind of where it is, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for coming down, Josh, for the Maverrik podcast. And thank you all for listening to us or watching us on YouTube as well. Please subscribe and share this podcast with anyone who needs this information. And we will see you next time for our Maverrik podcast.